Undercover boss gets toast and coffee, freezes when waitress says she's fainting from hunger. Monday morning. The ashen sky cast a faint veil of gloom over a small neighborhood in the southern part of the city. There was no rain, but a chilly breeze slipped through the leaves, nudging people to pull their collars up and quicken their steps toward the breakfast diners, still glowing with morning lights. A middle-aged man, wearing an old brown coat and a low-pulled cap hiding half his face, slowly walked through the glass doors of Sunrise Diner, suburban branch number 17. No one recognized him. And that was exactly what Michael Carter, 50 years old, CEO of the entire Sunrise Diner chain, wanted. On paper, this branch operated well, stable revenue, loyal customers, and nothing alarming in the monthly reports. But recent internal meetings were haunted by vague concerns from the operations team. High turnover rates, a spike in transfer requests, and a recurring phrase in random audits, a cold atmosphere. Michael had once started with a tiny pastry stall on the street. He knew what sweat smelled like after a morning shift, and he understood the value of each dollar tip that got you through the end of the month. To him, people were always the greatest asset of any system. And today, he wasn't here to review spreadsheets. He came to listen to what the reports had left out. The atmosphere inside the diner wasn't cold, but something felt hollow. The coffee machine hummed steadily. Dishes clinked, customers murmured. It was like a background track on loop. The servers moved in a synchronized rhythm, but no one smiled, no one spoke to one another. It was tidy but rigid, like a machine just oiled enough to run, but missing a heart. Only one person caught Michael's attention from the start. Lily, the girl with hastily tied hair and a coffee-stained apron. She didn't pause for even a second, taking orders, delivering food, clearing tables, pouring water, apologizing for late dishes, and still managing a faint smile as if to reassure the guests that all was well. But her posture slouched, her face looked drained, and her eyes, though still striving to hold a kind gaze, clearly bore the marks of someone long accustomed to working in silence and depletion. Michael picked the table near the window and sat down. He didn't need a menu. He had ordered something else, a truthful look from the inside. And the moment his gaze once again followed Lily's footsteps across the busy dining room, he knew something was very wrong here, and it was being hidden deep beneath the surface. If you'd like, I can continue writing part 2, the inciting incident when Lily accidentally reveals a truth that leaves Michael stunned. Michael ordered a simple meal, toast, soft-boiled eggs, and black coffee with no sugar. It was his usual choice whenever he needed to focus. A cleansing breakfast, just like the way he wanted to see things clearly today. Lily was the one who brought the food. She carried the tray skillfully, her eyes quickly glancing at another table waiting nearby. She placed the plate down with a small smile, polite but not fake. Her lips pressed lightly together after the usual thank you, as if she had done it thousands of times. Michael gave a slight smile, then asked in the voice of someone who had seen far too much, "Have you had breakfast yet?" It seemed like a harmless question, a warm bit of small talk amidst a still quiet restaurant, but Lily paused for just a second, just one. But it was enough for Michael to see the corner of her eye tremble. She shook her head slightly, and then, in a whisper, as if afraid anyone else might hear, she said, "I can't remember the last time I had a full meal. Every morning I feel lightheaded, but if I take a break, who's going to serve this whole area? No bitterness, no self-pity." That sentence, light as morning mist, was heavy like a confession no one had asked for, no one wanted to hear, and no one ever answered. Michael fell silent. The coffee in his hand was still steaming, but what made him shudder wasn't the bitterness of the drink. Across from him was a persona, real human being, trading away every breath, every meal, every living minute, just to keep one gear spinning in the machine he had built. Uninvisible here, unacknowledged, unshared, unnamed. And that was the moment Michael understood. This wasn't a random visit anymore. This was the deepest investigation, not to see how the system worked, but to find out how many more beats the heart inside that system had left to give. Michael didn't stand up. He didn't eat either. He just took a sip of coffee, not to stay awake, but to steady his heartbeat as a growing sense of unease began to take shape. He started observing more closely. Lily was like the only ticking hand on a clock trapped inside a silent system. She served more than 10 tables, most of them, two tops, constantly rotating between taking orders, carrying trays, pouring water, clearing plates, and then apologizing with a thin smile when dishes were delayed. Every movement was precise, as if she had repeated them until her reflexes had worn thin. Michael counted 12 tables. Some were quick-turn guests who left in 15 minutes, but others were more complicated. Elderly guests, children, custom orders, special requests. Lily handled all of it alone. Meanwhile, behind the counter, Ryan and Jason, two neatly dressed male employees, moved about leisurely as if attending a training session in a practical class. They only handled 3 or 4 tables, all of them VIP. Regulars, large orders, customers who paid by card. And more importantly, they were the only ones allowed to use the POS terminal. Michael noticed, whenever a guest asked to pay, even if Lily had done all the service, she always stepped back lightly, without a word of protest, as if it had been predetermined long ago. He didn't need more anecdotal evidence. Michael pulled out his phone and logged into the Sunrise system, using a top-tier administrator account of privilege held only by himself and a few board members. The interface loaded. He navigated to branch number 28. Pose role assignments. Ryan L. R. Langford, full pause access. Jason M. Pause sub-role, afternoon shift. Lily W. No pause access assigned. Michael frowned. He switched to the system update log. Patch 6.1.4, manual override. Date applied. 6 weeks ago. Scope. Exclusive to branch number 28. Notes. Optimizing morning payment processing. Accelerating pause handling. Setting. All digital tips under $15 automatically routed to ID. R. Langford. Approved by D. Hayes. Doug Hayes. Branch manager. The very man who, in last month's internal newsletter, said, Sunrise should be a place where everyone has an equal opportunity to be seen and recognized. And now, he was the one who approved a covert system patch that rerouted all small digital tips into his nephew's account, Ryan Langford. No need to falsify ledgers. No need to manipulate reports. Just a system update and one person conveniently forgotten in the permissions list. Lily, the one darting around the dining room, didn't exist in any POS system record. No ID, no transactions, no tips, only work and silence. Michael closed his phone. At table 4, Lily was softly apologizing to an elderly lady for underseasoned soft-boiled eggs. Her voice was quiet, but her hands still held the tray steady. She tilted her head, nodded slightly, and walked back toward the counter, still the fastest worker in the diner, yet receiving the least. Michael watched her, and a harsh truth struck him. This wasn't a small operational error. It was a structured scheme of exploitation, a so-called optimized process programmed to rob decent people of their efforts. And he knew that morning, at that little table near the window, it wasn't the toast that was waking him up. It was a server holding herself together on an empty stomach just to preserve her own dignity. Michael remained seated, but inside he was boiling. A faint clack came from the espresso machine as Lily tried to pour another Americano for table 6. Her hand trembled slightly. No one noticed, but Michael did. That tremble wasn't from cold, nor laziness. It was the sign of someone past their limits, but still too afraid to stop. A few seconds later, Lily came out briskly with a tray of pastries and a check. The customers politely nodded in thanks. She gave a small nod back, like muscle memory, and quickly turned away again. No lingering for praise, no pause to catch her breath. She simply continued. Just continued. Michael noticed. Her shoes were frayed at the edges, the inner soles worn through on one side. Every step made a small click, steady, rhythmic, like a ticking clock, but heavy. He glanced toward Ryan. The guy was leaning on the counter, cracking a joke with Jason, both chuckling. Ryan flipped the POS device in his hand as if it was his personal right. Whenever the screen lit up with swipe card, Ryan automatically stepped forward, pointed at the screen, and completed the transaction with practiced ease. He didn't look at anyone, didn't care who had actually served that table. A female customer at table 7 was about to thank Lily, but didn't get the chance. Ryan had already stepped in and swiped the card. Lily simply took one step back, slightly tilted her head, smiled, and turned away. Michael suddenly felt his chest tighten. At that moment, something made him freeze. Inside the checkout area, a small acrylic sign hung, displaying a message in clean letters. Digital tips will be distributed transparently according to POS system policy. Lily passed by, not even glancing at it, not because she couldn't read it, but because she knew her name had never once been in that system. Michael reopened his phone. He accessed the POS transaction analytics. For the past 3 weeks, A.R. Langford received 82% of all digital tips, all under $15, no recorded transactions. Jason M., 12%, mostly during afternoon shifts. He scrolled further. Ryan's total digital tip earnings over the past 21 days, 4 times Lily's base salary. Michael gripped the edge of his phone. His hand trembled not from anger, but from shame. How could a system he once took pride in become a machine where good people survive on black coffee while frauds collect rewards from other people's labor? From across the room, a little girl sitting with her mother asked for more toast. Lily bent down and softly asked, "Want some fresh strawberries with that?" So gently that Michael had to lean forward just to hear her. She turned away right after, one hand instinctively pressing her side as though the pain had been dragging on since yesterday's shift. He watched her walk into the kitchen, and for the first time since entering the diner, Michael stood up, not because he was hungry, but because he knew the man who once built Sunrise Diner on the motto, "Fairness is a culture, not a catchphrase," had come to the moment where he had to act. Friday morning, 6:59 a.m. Outside, the sky was still blanketed in a misty haze, but inside Sunrise Diner, branch number 28, the atmosphere had thickened into a tense stillness, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting. The door swung open. Michael Carter walked in a hoodie, no quiet stride of a concealed customer. Today, he came as himself, the founder and CEO of Sunrise Diner, the man who once promised that no drop of sweat would go unseen. Following close behind him were Julia, head of HR, 2 internal auditors, and the lead technician for the POS system. Their presence silenced the entire room. Morning greetings thinned out. A few staff members froze mid-motion. Ryan spotted him first, and for a split second, his hand jerked away from the POS machine like it had burned him. Doug Hayes, the branch manager, emerged from the office with a forced calm, still holding a steaming cup of coffee. "Mr. Carter, well, this is a surprise." "It's not a surprise, Doug." Michael cut him off, voice low but unwavering. "I'm simply right on time." He nodded to Julia. She opened her laptop, connected a small speaker resting on the counter. Just one press of a button, and the truth began playing. No need for explanation. "Just set the default for tips under $15 to Ryan's ID. No one notices. That girl Lily does the work, but she doesn't even get recorded." Doug approved it. "It's all good." The diner fell into stunned silence. Every gaze in the room shifted from shock to rage. Doug swallowed hard. His face twitched. He clutched his coffee like a lifeline. We were just trying to streamline payment during peak hours," Doug stammered. "There was no bad intention." Michael stared directly at him. No need to raise his voice. "You optimized it so your nephew gets all the tips every shift, while Lily holds herself upright with coffee because she's starving, and that's not optimization. That's theft." The words dropped like a verdict. No one defended them. No one dared to interrupt. Julia continued, quoting the POS report. "Digital tips under $15 account for 78% of total morning shift transactions. Valid transactions. 100% were routed to ID. R. Langford, approved by Doug Hayes, missing from the system. Lily W. Doug Hayes and Ryan Langford are hereby terminated effective immediately," Julia declared. "All system access is revoked. Their files have been forwarded to the legal department for investigation and accountability." Ryan turned pale, simply placing the POS terminal down on the counter and stepping back. Doug stood frozen, as if the first winter wind had just blown through his entire body. And then, Michael turned toward the back of the counter. "Lily," he called gently, "could you come out here, please?" No one turned their heads, but every gaze in the room fixed on one point. Lily stood there, still wiping down a table, her eyes flickering between surprise and disbelief. But in Michael's gaze, she didn't see pity. She saw trust. Lily stepped forward, slow but steady. No one clapped, but every look from customers, coworkers, even those who used to pass by her like a shadow followed her. No more pity, only recognition. Today, she wasn't someone erased from the system. Today, she stood as a living symbol of resilience, of dignity suppressed but never extinguished. Michael nodded. No need for praise, no grand speech, only action, and the timely presence of someone once forgotten. And in that space under the morning light, filtering through the dew-fogged window, Lily didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for everyone who had ever been forced into silence. With the whole diner watching, Lily remained standing, not hiding her nervousness, but no longer shrinking away either. In that moment, what silenced the room wasn't Michael Carter's title, nor the sudden firings. It was the realness of one woman who had once been erased from the system, now standing at the very center of a long overdue awakening. Michael stepped forward but didn't close the distance. He kept spaces, if to allow Lily to walk into the role she had always deserved, by her own strength. "Do you know why I called your name today?" Michael's voice wasn't loud, but it carried the warmth of affirmation. Lily shook her head, her lips pressed tightly together. Because if a fair system can be broken by a few lines of code, then it can also be rebuilt, so long as there's someone brave enough to stand firm in injustice and not collapse. Behind them, a young staff member slowly nodded. An elderly customer gently placed a hand on his companion's shoulder, as if to say, "Look, that's a real one." Michael turned to Julia, exchanging a brief glance. Then he looked back at Lily, his expression now softer. "This morning, I signed a temporary appointment. Lily, you'll serve as interim operations support manager for the next 30 days. Not because I want to reward you, but because I need someone who truly understands the value of being present even when no one calls your name." Lily's eyes widened, her hands trembled gently, like holding a hot cup of coffee. "But you've never been given the chance." "Now you are," Michael replied, firm and decisive. Another silence passed this time, not heavy, but gentle, like a shift in melody. Cassie, a server who used to work the same shifts as Lily, stepped forward and took her hand. "You don't have to say anything. The whole diner already heard you. Today, there's no need to whisper anymore." Lily squeezed her hand back. She didn't cry, but something welled in her eyes, not fatigue anymore. It was the feeling of being seen. A young guest by the window raised a phone to take a photo of the freshly installed sign that morning reading, "Tip sharing policy, transparent, public, protected." And below, etched into a brass plaque, "No shift is invisible. No voice is too small." And as Lily turned back toward the kitchen to begin her shift as usual, her eyes were no longer cast downward. Her worn-out shoes were still the same, but her steps were now those of someone who knew she was no longer walking alone. Behind the counter, Michael lifted his coffee cup, letting the warmth seep into his palms. He didn't drink. He simply held the kupas, if making a silent vow. Next time someone whispers out of hunger, someone will stop to listen and act. 1 month later, the early spring morning was windless. Pale sunlight streamed through the clear glass at the front of Sunrise Diner, branch number 28. No more suffocating air, no more avoiding glances. Today, the diner felt peaceful yet alive, as if, finally, it had reclaimed its own heartbeat. Michael Carter walked through the glass doors, no need for introductions. No longer the nameless CEO, no longer the man with questions. Today, he returned for one purpose only: to see that the right thing continued even in his absence. Right above the cashier counter, a digital screen shone bright, displaying an auto-updating message every hour. "Tip sharing policy, transparent, public, protected." And beneath it, engraved into the wooden panel, "Every effort matters, every voice is counted." Lily stepped out from the back kitchen. No more frayed apron, no more weary posture. She wore a light-colored shirt, her face glowing in the morning light. Pinned to her left chest, a new name badge: Lily W., General Manager. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she smiled. That smile wasn't for customer service. It was the smile of someone who knew she was standing in the right place, in the right role, and finally being seen for her true worth. Michael nodded. He walked to the familiar table by the window where, 1 month ago, a soft-spoken sentence had shaken an entire system. "I can't remember the last time I had a full meal." Cassione of her former coworkers passed by and gently placed a hot cappuccino on the table. No notes, no need to ask. Today, everyone understood one another down to the smallest detail. Lily pulled out a chair and sat across from him. No need to ask, no need to prove anything. Michael lifted his cup, letting the warmth again seep into his hands like a quiet reminder. He glanced out the window, where sunlight touched the glass softly, then turned back to Lily and spoke in a voice as calm as a silent promise. "The most important things in a restaurant aren't on the menu. They are trust, dignity, and the courage to speak up, even when no one thinks that voice matters." Lily didn't respond, but she held her coffee cup firmly, her gaze steady. And in that moment outside, a little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve and pointed at the text on the digital screen. "Mom, they share tips fairly here." The whole diner chuckled softly. Michael looked down at his steaming cup of coffee. Right person. Right moment, right reason. There was no need for grand declarations. Just one act of kindness being returned to its rightful place. Under the morning sunlight, everything in the diner seemed to slow, not from exhaustion, but as if everyone was savoring the simplicity and meaning of this moment. Lily turned, placing her hand gently on the old brown leather notebook she used to write orders in, back when the system had no place for her. She flipped a few pages, then smiled softly and pushed it toward Michael. "I keep this to remind myself not to forget." Is bragger. Michael scanned the faded ink notes that never made it into the system. Table set, new pepper, table tree, Regular guest likes extra ice. And in one small corner, a block note in all caps. Don't forget to smile. You're still standing. He nodded not in praise, but as an unspoken recognition for a quiet warrior. From behind the counter, a new trainee young Hannah was learning how to use the POS machine, directly guided by Lily. No more fighting over who gets to process payments. No more fearful glances. Now, everyone was seen by the system and by the heart of the one leading them. A group of interns entered. Michael noticed the new uniforms redesigned by the internal team, with the Sunrise logo embroidered by hand on the chest. I let the trainees rotate through the main floor too, not just the kitchen, Lily explained, so they can see that fairness begins in the smallest actions. Michael nodded. He glanced around and saw, in one corner of the counter, a new photo frame, a team picture with everyone smiling. In the center was Lily, holding a coffee pot. In the bottom corner of the photo was a small Quotano author's name, but everyone knew exactly where it came from. Those who dare to stand up for what is right will always be remembered, even if they started with just a whisper. Michael gently tightened his grip on the coffee cup in his hand. Lily, who once survived on caffeine just to make it through every morning shift, was now standing strong without needing it. More than that, she was now the one others could lean on. Outside, the sunlight had fully risen. Through the clear glass, Michael saw the rays shine directly onto the digital display. Tip sharing policy, transparent, public, protected. The final word blinked once, as if breathing out, protected. And as he drank the last sip of his hot coffee, the same cup he once had to put down a month ago, because the truth was too hard to swallow, he knew. Justice doesn't always knock with a loud voice. Sometimes it just needs someone brave enough to stand and someone willing enough to listen.